Hey everybody, Jake from Tasting Anarchy here. Wine can be really confusing. When you're starting out, it's hard to tell high quality wine from a bottle of plunk. It can also get really expensive. Boy, have I found that out lately by looking at my bank statements. I did a lot of research to find a better way to buy quality wine without breaking the bank, and that's how I discovered an awesome website called Last Bottle Wines. Last Bottle Wines has fostered personal relationships with wineries across the world and offer one bottle of high-quality wine a day at 30 to 70% off. When the bottle is gone, it's gone. New day, new bottle, new savings. I recently ordered a Spanish Tempranillo. This wine normally retails for $74, and I got it from Last Bottle Wines for only $32. It's not a wine club, so there's no fees. Shipping is affordable and can even be free. You know Mason and I are always after the best wines at the best price. We want you to enjoy the same deal. That's why we got you this special offer. Some of our listeners have already taken advantage of the deal and are loving the experience. All you need to do is go to lastbottlewines.com/invite/tastinganarchy to get $10 off your first purchase while helping your favorite Wine and Liberty podcast. That's lastbottlewines.com/invite/tastinganarchy to get $10 off a delicious bottle of wine at 30 to 70% off. Tasting Anarchy, your Wine and Liberty podcast. Join Mason and Jake each week as they try new wines and discover how much government is in your drink.
So, Jake, I hear you just got back from a wonderful trip down south ways in the great state of Texas.
That's right. I did. And, well, it was southwest, so like pretty much the furthest southwest in Texas you can go without getting to another state or another country. But it was a lot of fun, but I went the long way around. And the reason I went the long way around was basically because of this show. So I stopped along the way at several wineries in Texas Hill Country, which is pretty much directly south of here. A little bit west, but pretty much southwest, so a little bit west of Austin. And had just a blast in Hill Country, even though I was only just kind of passing through. There's a lot of really cool towns down there, and it's very wine centric in a lot of it. So I don't know if it's just all of Texas does this or if it's like an Austin thing, but there's this town called Fredericksburg there, and I guess it's like an old German town, and it's got just in that area are just ungodly amounts of wineries. And I stopped at several of them, and it ranged from just kind of a fun place to stop and hang out and the wine, but to outstanding wine as well. So, and actually when I got over to Marfa, which is, we'll get into in a minute, I mentioned a few of those, and Ricky, who I was planting grapes with, he knew about a bunch of the wineries, and he was like, "Oh yeah, that one's great. That one's and but it's what's interesting to me about and you and I are both kind of interested in this, Mason, is the marketing side of wine and grapes. And one of the things that they do in Texas, or at least in this part of Texas, it seems to me, is it's not so much that they're interested in bottling the wine and then sending it to like Total Wine or some sort of wine merchant to sell. What they're more interested in is getting people to come down to their winery and hang out and drink it, and then buy a couple of bottles or something like that. That seems to be the marketing strategy, because they're all pretty much set up as like a place to hang out and eat and like chill out and all that sort of stuff. And when you talk to the people who are running them, like, where can I get this wine from? And they're like, well, there's a couple of local places that you can get it. But besides that, you can either order it from them directly online, or get it from the winery, or get it from a couple of local retailers, and that's it.
Yeah, that reminds me of the beer scene in Virginia Beach back when we first started like hearing about beach brewing, which became Reaver Beach.
Yeah.
Like, nobody wanted to get in with the distributor because, like, the local distributor here, I think they have a, like, lifetime contract.
Oh, wow.
Like,
I didn't know
if
that.
If you start getting distributed with them, you have to sign a lifetime contract, and then you can never be distributed with anybody else. So, but, you know, like, they used to do that where, like, when they changed the law in Virginia to allow the brewery, like, brew pub style, not brew pubs, but, like, just open breweries and like people started doing it, it was like, no, like you just come here. And like even now, like with Reaver Beach, which Beach became, like you can buy Hoptopus in stores and that's about it. And
is that still true, or is that?
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, now it's true. Okay.
Yeah. Like you can buy Hoptopus in stores. Now I'm betting like Grape and Gourmet, you could always kind of get more than just Hoptopus, but like at Kroger, they just have Hoptopus.
Yeah.
But like Young Veterans, there's like 3 or 4 at least, you know, and there's a bunch of the breweries, like you can get more of it. So I think it's probably like they make more money by having people show up.
I think that's true. And it also, I don't like putting it this way because the wine actually I'm going to review tonight is from that area, and I think it's very good. I think if you don't have super high quality wine, or if you're still learning to produce good wine or something like that, it probably makes up for the lack in structure and flavor to have the experience come along with it.
Well, I think it's also one of those things where it's like you go into the grocery store anywhere in the country and you see a wine from Napa Valley, you kind of know, yeah, this is probably worth drinking. Or, and, you know, not that all wine from Napa Valley is worth drinking, and, you know, not that all wine from Texas is worth or not worth drinking, but like I think it's kind of that thing where it's like, yeah, we're from an AVA that's been around for 5 years or 10 years, you know, 20 years, like not a long time, and we don't have a name. So why would we bother getting distribution? Because we're going to distribute to, you know, Jake's Texas Wine House.
Yeah, which, right.
By the way, great business idea. Like,
that would be fun.
Because I honestly think, especially in Dallas and maybe in Austin, you could probably do a Texas only like wine shop and probably be pretty successful, because there'd just be enough people who would be into that idea.
Yeah, especially if it was like kind of in like a touristy part of town or something, like in Old Town, like the Old Town part of Dallas is you just kind of have like it attached to a restaurant or something like that, or next to a restaurant. So like there's a wine tasting area room, or whatever it's called, a wine bar, I guess, that Victoria and I go to occasionally. And it is like their deal or whatever is they don't serve food, but they're next door to a pretty good pizza place and also a really good Mediterranean place. And you can go get food from either one of those places and bring it over and eat it at the wine bar. And so something along those lines would be cool. So it was like, you know, you come to this place and we'll have people who are experts in Texas wine come talk to you about Texas wine. Like that would be a pretty cool business deal. And you know, maybe getting into the wines a little bit for today, there is, I think, very good wine being produced in Texas. And the wine I'm drinking tonight is actually going to be on the Childeberg Wine Van wine tour.
Yes.
Well, this vintage is not.
Who will be driving this van?
You will be driving that van.
I will be driving this van.
Yeah.
So, a quick Childeberg plug for those who don't know. Jacob, we are going to Buchanan. I've not got the lake's name.
I think it's. I think I keep getting it mixed up, but it's Buchanan Lake.
Buchanan Lake.
The park is Black Rock Park. It's June 8th and 9th in Llano County.
Yes, which is down south ways from you.
Yeah,
a little southwest too. Not as southwest as Marfa.
No, not nearly that far. And it's a little bit northwest of Austin. So if you're in the Austin area, the DFW area, or you care to take a drive.
Or a flight.
Or
a boat.
Or however you want to get here.
Hovercraft.
Yeah, hovercraft would be awesome. There's still campsites available as of this recording, although they are filling up pretty fast.
Yeah.
But once they fill up, that doesn't mean you can't come. It just means you're on your own to find places to sleep.
Correct. And the same with the wine van. So we intend to visit 3 wineries. I will be the, designated driver. So, you know, we're not saying you can or should get Blitzthaus or whatever phrase you like for incredibly drunk, but there will be safe, reliable transportation to the wine. Now, if the wine van is full, you're certainly welcome to caravan with others to it. But we do ask that someone, you know, not partake just in case, you know, which is not how you and I normally do things, but we will be responsible in that regard. So one of us will be completely sober, which will be me. But then, you know, I will be enjoying some wine. I think Jacob and I are going to enjoy $1,000 bottle of wine as a podcast event.
Yep.
Car Campit is going to attend, and maybe mystery guest Bird. No, I mean,
oh man, that would be great if he was coming. Yeah. Well, but other friends of our podcast, or well, people that I'm friends with on Twitter that haven't been on our podcast yet. Rollo McFrugal from the Rollo and Slabby show, he will be there. Mr. Sue, who has been a guest on our show, he'll be there. Dino is going to be there from the Dino Files.
Yes.
And he and I are working on getting together at some point to podcast. And actually maybe we'll do it at Childeberg. So there, but it's going to be a lot of podcasters, a lot of fun. We've got, right now it's bring your own food, bring your own beer. We do have somebody who, I won't say who it is, that is bringing quite a bit of beer. And maybe at a later date or whatever the legal ramifications are, I won't announce it at all. Who knows? But there will be some drink there. And if you want to bring drinks and food to share, you're more than welcome to. It's not really, I mean, it's officially Childeberg, but for, I guess, legal reasons, we're kind of keeping it a loose gathering of liberty-minded individuals. So it's more like just like a camp gathering. So we're camping out there. We're doing a couple of things that you guys are welcome to join us on, and it's going to be a really, really great time, I think. Car and I have got some other stuff cooked up, too, that just some fun events and some just kind of goofy things to have at the lake that'll just be fun for everybody to take pictures with and like just to enjoy themselves. So I think everybody's going to have a great time. And it's also just an awesome time to, this is something that I missed from back in our days when we had the libertarian meetings in Virginia Beach, is just getting to know other people who have the same, I wouldn't even say quirk, because I think politically we're correct, but the same inclinations politically as we have. And then it's a really good opportunity for you just to argue about the minutia when normally you're so far apart from most people on your political ideology that you're just trying to get them to agree to not hit you and take your stuff,
Yeah. You're like, that's the thing is we have so many things with so many other political ideologies that we touch point on that, you and I are at least, and, I think people like Scott Horton and Tom Woods are like, no, let's have the conversation about the stuff we agree on and kind of join forces. And I think that's a really Rothbard thing to do.
Yeah.
Like, no, we're all anti-war. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Let's do this. And, I think that's the beauty of this. And, our goal is to have an event where you don't have to worry necessarily about offending someone by saying, yeah, don't take my stuff.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
What belongs to me, it's mine.
Yeah.
And I will share with those who I feel I can share with, but I'm not going to go out of my way to be like, oh, nope, you can have everything I've ever had.
Yeah. I mean, it's really turning out to be it's going to be cool. And we've already got plans now set up for Childeberg Dose. So it's just going to be a continual good time annually down here in Texas. But enough of us promoting Childeberg.
Well, let's talk about the actual thrust of why did you mentioned it briefly, but why did you take this long and arduous trek that had many diversions and Jacob-like explorations down to Texas, down south-wise?
I'm the type of person who, I wouldn't even say spontaneous, but I have no qualms with just like reaching out to somebody and being like, hey, can I do this? And somehow I think actually Jackson Blood might have shared it with me. I got a link for this guy who's starting the highest altitude winery in Texas. And it is actually quite high altitude. I didn't realize Texas had this type of altitude. It's at over, I think it's at over 3,700 feet. I would have to look. Actually, let me pull it up real quick.
Well, you keep talking about it. I'll look it up.
Okay. Yeah, look up Alta Marfa. So Alta Marfa is a new winery it's in the Marfa area. I think it's about 30 minutes from Marfa. And it's a high altitude winery, and the guy is just starting it out. His name's Ricky. He's just a really awesome dude, and he's agreed to come on the show. So hopefully I'll do an interview with him. And
so Marfa is about 4,600 feet itself.
Okay. I think he's a little higher than that. So he must be over 5,000.
Oh man. Like you said this.
Yeah.
I didn't actually look where this was in Texas.
Oh yeah. This. Yeah. It's far.
It's part of the Chihuahuan Desert.
Yeah. Oh, and it's just beautiful out there too. That's the thing is like, I didn't realize I do like the desert, but I didn't realize how pretty high desert is like this.
Oh yeah.
And it was a really great time. But Ricky is starting this winery, and he actually attempted to plant last year, but all but like 5% of the grapes that he ordered, of the vines that he ordered, were dead on arrival.
Oh my.
And so, I guess good luck for me, bad luck for him though.
Yeah.
He needed help replanting this year. So I drove down on a Thursday, and I stopped at a whole bunch of these wineries in Hill Country, and I arrived at Alta Marfa around 7:00 in the afternoon. It was high altitude, and he had, I think it was his aunt and uncle. I'm not exactly sure what their relation was, or it could have been just childhood friends, parents, or something like that. They were out there helping him plant. So it was just Ricky, me, and these two older people and Ricky's girlfriend. And I just showed up after asking him if I could come. And he was like, wow, you're the first internet person who showed up, for this planting. He's like, I got some more coming maybe later this month, but, it's just kind of cool how the internet works these days is you put yourself out there and people are just like, what can I do? And so he put me to work the next day, and I dug about 2,000 holes. The soil there is super, super rocky. So, but that's good for the grapes. The grapes are
good drainage, right?
Really good drainage. And it also is kind of a struggle for them to get their roots in there. And, people say this, quote unquote, they say, that grapes like to struggle. And I said something about that to Ricky, and he was like, well, I don't think grapes like to struggle, but it does make them produce good fruit. So he's like, they'd be perfectly happy being down in some very loamy soil next to a stream or something like that, but they're not going to produce very good grapes, and they probably won't produce that many grapes because they'll be putting all their energy into growing bigger and bigger. So they'll produce some grapes, but when you kind of control the growth of them and you put them in this soil that's a little bit more difficult. And it's also, people would always plant their grapes in places where they couldn't plant food. So they're putting them up in these, rocky banks and stuff like that. And because grapes are fine growing there, they'll do it. Whereas, you can't put a bunch of wheat up there. And, I mean, you could probably put some, but it wouldn't be very efficient.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I dug about 2,000 holes. There's all day long. We probably worked from 8 or 9 in the morning until 5 or 6 at night, just bent over holes, digging, pulling rocks out, and making sure that the drainage tubes and the irrigation tubes and stuff were hooked up correctly. And that's pretty much what we did the first day. And then the next day, the grapes came in, and there was a lot of really cool grapes, a lot of really interesting ones, because he's like, I don't really know exactly what's going to grow here. He's betting that Cabernet Sauvignon is going to be what grows there very well. And I asked him, are you doing that because it's Cabernet Sauvignon sells well? And he goes, no, I think it will sell well, but also I think that this climate and this soil is going to produce a good Cabernet Sauvignon. And so, but he's like, but I don't know for sure. So I'm betting on that. So I think he ordered 2,000 vines of one type of Cabernet Sauvignon, and then 3,000 of another clone. So you know about the clones, right, Mason? Have we gone over that in the show before?
I think we went over it a long time ago, and it was one of those topics where we both were like, there's a lot to this, and we didn't necessarily dig deeper.
Okay. Yeah, just kind of in summary, and I haven't dug very deep into it. Most of the vines that are planted in the United States they're grafted onto American rootstock. So they're vitiverniferous, which is the European grape varietal, and that grape is grafted onto an American rootstock. But grapes can easily be cloned. So basically, you take a clipping of it, and then you can plant that clipping, and that will become a clone of the parent plant. And the difference is that when you take a seed off of a grape and you plant the grape, that becomes a new plant.
Yeah, it's like apples.
Exactly. But you don't necessarily know what that grape is going to be. So the fruit on the grape is going to be the fruit of the vine, but the seed that's inside the fruit may not be what you think it is, because you are planting all these grapes near each other, and they do cross-pollinate.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. So and this is something else I learned from Ricky, is that grapes are not pollinated by bees. They're wind pollinated.
Yeah.
And I thought that was very interesting. I had no idea.
Yeah. That's the thing is bee pollination is very important, but it is not it's not the be all end all. There's a lot of plants that don't. Yeah.
And this is one of the plants. Well, the European varietals are hermaphroditic, so they're self-pollinating. And although Americans are not, you do have to have male and female plants. for the American varietals, but the rootstock is the same. So they just put the rootstock. They just use and the reason they use the American rootstock is because there is this pest that will eat the roots of the European ones, but the American rootstock is thicker, and so these pests can't bite into it and tear it apart. So that's why it's like that. I can't remember what the pest is called. It's
we've gone over it before.
Yeah, I think it's called like phylloxera or something like that.
I think it has a common name, like a non-scientific common name.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. So anyway, so he's planting the two clones of Cabernet Sauvignon, the 1103P clone and the 110R clone. What the difference is, I'm not sure, but I think he thinks that these are going to be a good blend together. But then we also planted a lot of really interesting things that I've never heard of. Have you ever heard of Negro Amaro?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I've never heard of that one either, but we planted 25 of those. We planted one of my favorite whites. I don't know if you've had this white before, Albarino.
I think I might have had it in like a blend.
Okay. I actually, for Childeberg, going back to Childeberg, I have 4 bottles of Albarino to share.
Nice.
that I think are really good. It's a really good Spanish Albarino. It was very inexpensive, but I liked it a lot. So I thought, well, this will be a good one for me to share. So I just got 4 of them. And I have other things to share as well, but, so that I've never heard of that, or I've heard of that. That's one I like, and it was kind of cool. We planted 25 of those because he was like, well, let's see how this grows, and if it grows well, if it produces a good wine, then maybe I'll expand it, because this is just the first stage. He's got I think the ones that he's working on is about 5 acres. And he's going to expand it to another 5-acre plot, and then he's got more land on the back side of the hill as well, and a little bit more on the front side of the hill. So he's got a lot. We did Petit Manseng, which I think you and I have had something with Petit Manseng blended. I don't think we've ever had it by itself, though.
No, I don't think I've ever had that pure.
So he did Sauv Blanc, which I like Sauv Blanc a lot. I think you've had it with me before, or maybe by yourself. Have you ever heard of Fiano?
No.
Me neither. So that's another one that he's planting there. And Picpoul Blanc he's planting, which is another white one. And Roussan, Petit Manseng. I think we actually planted more than 25, but he said that he had 25 vines in it. For some reason, I feel like Petit Manseng was a lot. But anyways, he's got all of the great varieties that he's planting on his website at altamarfa.com. But anyways, so we dug up all these holes. Then the next day, the vines arrived early in the morning, and we immediately put them into water, and then just started planting them one at a time. And then slowly over that next day, other people started arriving to help plant. And once we had like 15 people going, it was just like, we were just chugging along, planting these grapes. Yeah. I mean, it was awesome. Like seeing them all go in, getting the irrigation hooked up correctly. We had an irrigation pipe burst while we were working on it, but that got fixed very quickly, and it was really neat. He's got a really cool setup up there. I'm really, really, really excited to see his first vintage. I told him if he wants help on the first harvest, email me. I'll be out there because I want to learn about that too. And it's just so interesting for people like you and me who are just into wine. And I kept thinking about this while I was there, but the sort of the Lockian principle of like mixing your labor with the soil, like I kept thinking about that while I was there, because like it's so rewarding to like dig into dirt and move it, and then see something as a result when you're done, which is like these grapevines planted. And it was just really just a lot of fun to do it. I loved it. And I was talking to a whole bunch of people, and they're like, "What are you getting for this?" And I was like, "I'm not getting anything. Like, I'm getting the experience because it's cool, and I want to help this guy out." And I'm really excited for, he's going for a totally different angle than most of the wine. Well, I wouldn't say most of the wineries. He's going for his own angle, which is he thinks that this part of Texas can produce very good wine. And so he's not, and it's so far out in the middle of nowhere that people are not going to stop by to like hang out and like do a sipping or like a tasting or whatever. And he doesn't have any plans to put a tasting room in. He said maybe down the road he'll have a tasting room in Marfa because it's kind of a touristy town. But like it's so far out in the sticks that people don't want. He doesn't expect people to come out there, and he also doesn't really want to do it. He just doesn't want to deal with it.
I bet he could probably get more land out there and do kind of like a retreat style thing, like a wine weekend style, like where it's like bed and breakfast and like
you're probably good.
You're out in that country. Because I think like both you and I would like vacation at a place like that.
Yeah.
Like in 5 or 6 years, especially if they had like some base kid activities, we don't, expect them to have everything, but like just to be able to be like, get up in the high desert and like see the sunrise, see the stars.
Oh yeah. That was another thing too. Like you forget when you live in the city how beautiful
what the Milky Way looks like.
Yeah, exactly. What the Milky Way looks like. It's so startlingly bright. And then when the moon rises, you could easily work. Yeah, you could easily work at night. It's like daylight.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And can you imagine like back in the day when there was like just dark nights?
Yeah, yeah.
Like you weren't in the city, just the night's dark. And you're like, what?
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
it'd
exactly.
be terrifying. But yeah, like this is one of those things that like listening to the episode you did with the guy from, I feel so bad not remembering his name.
Craig,
you just had him on.
Craig Camp from
Craig Camp.
Yeah, from
seriously thought about
Troon Vineyard.
like
Troon Vineyard. Yeah.
Yeah, Troon Vineyard. I seriously thought about moving to Southern Oregon. Like the way he described that, I was like, I didn't really like 105. Like that seemed a bit much to me in the mountains.
Yeah.
But like that, I love Virginia in its own ways, and I like the heat when it gets fully hot, but Ashley doesn't care for it too much, and I really don't like the cold anymore, which makes it really hard to move anywhere because pretty much everywhere it gets cold.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh crap, what do? I don't want it to get too hot and I don't want it to get too cold, but I was like, yeah, it does snow in Oregon, but dang, Oregon is beautiful.
Yeah, well, in that part of Oregon, it doesn't get that cold. It gets cold, but it's not that cold. And and you got to think about it too. Is if they're growing grapes there, there's probably it's going to get cold in the winter, but it's not going to have a late frost most of the time. Although he did mention that was a risk that he would have. And actually, Ricky at Alta Marfa, he said that's one risk they have is a late frost. It's not as hot in that high desert as people think. It rarely gets over 95 up there.
Yeah, and I looked it up, and there was a person who apparently went to last year's planting and wrote an article about it.
Oh, really?
To Alta Marfa. And it's about 5,400 feet. So it's about 700 feet higher up than Marfa itself.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's up there, and it's just really gorgeous up there. And he's on the side of a pretty big hill. And once you get up on top of the hill and you watch the sun go down from up there, it's really pretty.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a lot of fun. But if Southern Oregon, it's also very green, and that's different than Marfa. Marfa was a lot of oranges, a lot of browns, which is pretty, but it's a very different type of pretty.
Well, Ashley and I have talked about New Mexico, but they have the fastest growing, in our limited opinion, left-wing banana government.
Oh, really?
Recently. Like they have a very small state legislature, and it's made up of a lot of women now, and they're passing some real leftist weirdo laws.
Really?
Yeah, it's like they're trying to become the, what's it called? Like the Massachusetts of the Southwest.
Oh, yeah.
And plus, like, Albuquerque, like, have you been to Albuquerque?
No.
Yeah, Albuquerque is one of those places that, like, because of the Weird Al song, I've always had, like, a place in my heart for it.
Yeah.
Plus, like, there's Los Alamos, which not a good thing now, but when I was a kid, like, I was super interested in, but, like, they have some pretty high crime.
Really?
Like, yeah.
Huh.
And kind of methy.
Oh,
like,
that's interesting.
It's like, it's a weird city. But, we thought about New Mexico for a while because it's just different. And we both love the high desert and, that sort of thing. But it's also, they all have their own problems. And as we have talked about on this show all the time, San Diego is kind of like the only place that like has the exact weather that I want to live in that isn't like Mexico.
Yeah, my folks are liking it. And actually, speaking of Mexico, Baja and actually just south of Marfa in Mexico, there's a growing wine, like higher altitude wine scene picking up, where people are realizing now kind of you can produce pretty good wine even that far south if you plant correctly and are at a higher altitude, because it does get hot and you are getting a lot of photosynthesis going on. But there are planting techniques that I hope to get into with Ricky, because he'll be able to like tell me a lot more about that than I do. But there's ways that you can plant that will help limit the photosynthesis in places that get those really long days like Alta Marfa gets.
Yeah, well, I think it's also, because you're in the high altitude, so the planting season may not be, or the growing season isn't as long as Craig was talking about, the reduction in that. But I also think like one of the things that we'll see a lot more of is automation for like sunshades for the grapes.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And the things that would cut the photosynthesis like midday, so that just the pure baking heat kind of take it down, because like you think about what you could do with like a couple Android or a couple Raspberry Pis.
Yeah.
Like for automation and like set photovoltaic with like resistance measures and like measuring how much resistance you've gotten, and then automatically coming on, and then when it goes down a certain level retracting itself.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean that's there's so much in wine that like like one of the things like John with in Portland.
John Javidanis.
Yeah. I was trying to remember his winery name. So
it's Javidanis Wine.
Yeah. Not to belittle him, like, but he's just happy to get good grapes.
Yeah.
But, he's not necessarily looking to get biodynamic or specifically completely organic grapes, or, to go out to this like high desert area or, Southern Oregon and plant, he's just like, no, like the people here are producing good enough grapes. I want to put my own spin on the production. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then like, you get people like Alta Marfa or like Craig, where it's like, no, we're going to grow in places that no one else is growing right now. And or no one else, not as many people are growing. And
or like in Craig's case where he's just like, no, we're taking this land has been kind of ruined, and we're going to repair it, and we're going to take it to the next level and producing something that is really high quality and really unique to this area. Like one of the things that Craig was talking about that I thought was super, super interesting, and I want to, maybe you and me can look for something like this, is those co-ferments that he was talking about. I didn't really, it makes sense. And
We've talked about that before.
Have we? Okay, because I didn't remember that.
I think in a weird passing.
Okay.
And it may not even have been on the show.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that idea, though, to me, it makes a lot of sense that it would produce a completely different wine than blending the same two grapes after they've been fermented separately. And because it's going to have like just different stages of the yeast living and dying, and I'm interested to try that. Actually, if you want to go visit out there sometime, maybe you and I can try to plan a coordinated trip to go to Southern Oregon.
Yeah, I mean, if things go right in life, I'm going to do a lot of traveling.
Yeah.
And it'll be a lot of, like, and it's hard with Henry, my dog, or, with the dog. It's like, it's hard to travel in that level, but there's going to be, like, I don't mind flying. So there's going to be a lot of, hey, let's 4 days, go do this.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. Like maybe I'll be able to go down to Alta Marfa and maybe not necessarily work from 8 to 5 as a farmhand, but, participate in a way where I'm not just dragging the operation down.
Well, what the thing is they had all sorts of people there helping. So it's just many hands make light work, as they say.
Yeah. But, that's the thing is like, I don't, for my own, my dad, like, oh, here's an opportunity to kill myself. Helping somebody else like move their entire house of priceless 18th century cannonballs.
Right.
And I have 45,000 of them. Right. And they're all 45 pounds. It's like crap, so, and I don't, like, I feel bad not participating in like the heavy lifting when I'm youngish guy, like it's my own problems, but those are the sort of things where like, what's the wine scene like in Tennessee? Well, like I shop a plane to, Memphis and then went to cheap car and go explore.
Absolutely. And you and I talked to to pepper up in Indiana. There's stuff going on there.
Yeah.
Apparently they produce really good ice wine, which I'm not a huge fan of ice wine, but I'd be interested to just go see the facilities up in Michigan.
Well, and that's the thing is like, it may not be our favorite wine style, but you and I have drank some not great beer, but sitting across from a guy who's like, no, this is what I'm into.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
This is what I do. It's a way different flavor. Like, that's why I'm really interested in trying Jons Wine.
Yeah.
Because like, I'm not saying he's not a high class producer, but to know the person and have spoken to him and hear their passion for what they do, like really does come out in like enjoying a product.
Right.
Now, like there are times where, this is just absolute trash. Like if you ever watch like any of the Gordon Ramsay shows where he's like going in to help a business and the person's like delusional about how good they are.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, you nearly killed me. Like, that's raw chicken. Like,
right.
But those are the things where like I'm really interested in like getting out there and seeing things. And like I don't, like one of the things that always kind of bothers me is like, you watch these people like in Europe and it's like, oh, I saved up money and I spent a summer backpacking. Yeah. And it's kind of like, so is like the exchange rate just that favorable that, you could save up that many euros and then just go bomb around Romania? But then you're like, no, they were going around southern France from England.
Right.
The exchange rate's negligible.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't know. I'm not sure how they do that. But let's go ahead and do our wines because we're only about 20 minutes away from our end. But just so everybody knows, that's altamarfa.com. You can read the blog that Ricky has going on.
It's spelled just like it sounds.
Yes, Alta Marfa, Marfa. And then we also mentioned John Dovidanius a few times. That's at Dovidanius Wine. That's DOVYDENAS wine.com. I'll put it in the show notes.
And he's bottling, if not finished bottling, soon. Some newer varieties for him too.
That's right. Yeah, he's got a couple going on right now that he's never done before. So I think that'll be really. Yeah, that's right. Yep, and he and I are going to try to figure out a way for you and me to get that. It may be tricky, but I think we'll be able to get it. The other guy that we mentioned,
your birthday gift, so whatever the cost, just let me know.
All right, I'll let you know. The other one was we also mentioned Craig Camp, which you can go back and listen to the previous episode. What would that be? 68, I guess.
Previous full episode.
Yeah.
So not the mini where I'm talking about the Longavi. But
no, actually, I guess there would be a new mini between that because I've got a beer mini for you coming out tomorrow.
Correct.
Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesday.
Yeah. So. Oh my gosh, you guys know when we record. but also
we've mentioned it continuously.
Yeah. So winecampblog.com, that's where you
68.
Can read 68. Okay, yeah, that's where you can read about Craig Camp and his expertise in biodynamic wine. I'm also going to try to get some wines from him. I think he ships to Texas, so I was going to maybe order some of those. And
they're working on it. They don't.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounded like they can ship to Texas, but I don't know if they can ship to Texas for personal consumption or if they can ship to Texas for businesses. Okay. But yeah, like, I feel like many of our episodes, like, John was great. Pepper was a lot of fun to talk to. Mm-hmm. Mark Claire was obviously fun. Nate, Jackson Blood. So not anything against them, but I think like just your general growth in podcasting, me not being there, coughing my brains out like when Mark was on, like the information we got from Craig and just how different it was. And, about, we've talked about some of this stuff before, but to hear about that's one of our best episodes. Like, just so much information in that episode.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun, and all the credit really goes to Craig. He really had just so much to say. He's got 30 years plus experience in the industry, and the last 5 or 6 years he's been on a biodynamic kick. So he's been just transforming. Putting all of the work in to transform Troon Vineyards into a biodynamic vineyard. I guess the next vintage is going to be their first certified biodynamic, or maybe he said this vintage was. You'll have to listen to the episode. Go back and listen to 68, and you'll find out. But let's go ahead and continue on to the wines. So Mason, we did this completely reverse of what we normally do. What do you sip? What are you sipping on tonight?
So I have Plaza de la Reina, which is the busiest town square in Valencia, Spain, which is their third largest city. I didn't realize that.
Oh, I didn't know that either.
And it's also like their busiest port. Like 20% of their stuff comes through there. So this is a 70% Tempranillo, 30% Monstrali.
I think it's Monstral or something like that. But
yeah, but I think it has a more common name.
Oh, okay.
So this is a wine that I got from Splash Wine.
This is that's a Spanish name for more. I can't remember. I can't ever pronounce it. More vedre. More drev.
Yeah.
More vedre. More vedre.
Well, Monstrelli or Monstrel.
Yeah.
Is the Spanish name, and it's a Spanish grape. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, I guess we just say we often say the French one because the French are the French.
Yeah. I got this through the Splash Wine 2018 Groupon kind of best of. This is like the smoothest Tempranillo that I've had. Like there's no strong push either direction. It's 12% alcohol by volume. It doesn't really have. It's like imported by 11's Imports, Bainbridge, Washington.
Bainbridge?
Bainbridge Island.
Oh, that's where my grandma was born.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, elaborated and bottled for Bodega, Antonio, Azraeli, SL, La Fonta de la Friga, Valencia, Spain. It's Splash Wines is not it's not like it's a cheap wine service. They do have some higher end bottles, but this is about $13 on theirs. Yeah, the Groupon wasn't, insanely expensive that my parents got me. It was like an $80 Groupon, but, I got 18 wines, and if one of them's $13, I made out.
Yeah.
If you just do the kind of general math. Again, very smooth. I think the Tempranillo, unless the Spanish Tempranillos are much smoother normally, and the ones I've had are just a little more aggressive, I think the Monstrella, or whatever the pronunciation is, really is what smoothed this out with the blending. It doesn't really give the vintage. There's a stamp on it, and that's like 2017, so it's like a production. So I don't know if it's the 2017 variety. It's not super. It's one of those wines where it's red wine. It's pretty tasty, but it's also not something where I'm going to be like, I need to go buy a case of this.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, that sounds pretty good to me, and it sounds like kind of a cool blend. And so that, how do you, I'm going to try to say this again. So it's Monastre, because I guess isn't the double L a Y sound?
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
My Spanish is awful.
Okay.
But it's one of those.
Monastre.
Yeah,
that's
it's
what I would say.
Blend that I would really like to try. More of.
Okay.
Where it's like, hey, let's, this is likes warm, dry climates and small, thick, this would probably be something that maybe in Alta Marfa might grow well, the Spanish varieties.
Yeah.
It may be, who knows, but it's one of those things where definitely something where if somebody said, oh, it's this blend, this is what I would measure it against. And I'm not against trying another blend of it. So.
Okay. Well, that sounds pretty good. So what I've got is, as I mentioned earlier on the show, from one of the vineyards that we will be visiting on the wine van for Childeberg. And
yes.
I didn't get this while I was down there because I came through. So I actually didn't go up in that part of Texas on the way down. I went around the other way so that I could hit some other ones. On the way back, I came here, but I had already ordered several bottles from them, and it was already closed by the time I came through because it was Sunday. So this is Torna Locks, which is I guess it loosely translates. It's Gaelic. It loosely translates to view of the lake or something like that, or hill with a lake view, so something along those lines.
Well, Loch is definitely a lake, like Loch Ness.
So I think it just sort of says I think it loosely translates to overlooking a lake. And one of the reasons why they've actually got a cool story, and I've been in contact with some of the people at the winery, so I think I might be able to line up an interview with them. Hopefully before Childeberg. But I don't know exactly why they were in Scotland, but they bought this property while they were in Scotland, and it was
nice.
It was just going to be, their ranch in Texas that they were going to live on, I guess later on, and they had visited it several times. And while they were on a different trip to Australia, they were on a wine tour in Australia, and they realized that the climate and the soil and all of that sort of seemed a lot like their property in Texas Hill Country. And so they were like, well, this would be kind of cool to turn our ranch into a ranch/vineyard/winery. And so that's what they did. And they had to clear all the rocks out of it, because this part of Texas is very rocky also. So they had to clear a lot of rocks and plant a lot of grapes. This particular Tempranillo is 13% or 13.9% alcohol by volume. It's not actually grown in Texas Hill Country. It's grown up in Texas High Plains, which is 5 or 6 hours away from Texas Hill Country. I think they also have a winery up there, and it's very common for Texas wineries to get their grapes from the High Plains, because they just grow so much up there. And that was really before Texas started producing good wine, or like finer wine. They were producing bulk grapes for either filler or for making brandy or other types of wine grape uses. So they were not really producing great stuff until people started kind of exploring. I'm reading this actually interesting book about the history of Texas wine, and they still produce a whole bunch, but they've really switched over to just better viticulture practices to produce higher quality grapes. Now, Mason, you've actually had a wine very similar to this one.
Oh.
At Pedernales, or however you say it. Pedernales, I think.
Yeah.
That was also a Texas High Plains Tempranillo. This one is very similar. Not quite as aggressive and a little bit more fruity. It is very strong ripe cherry flavors, very strong black fruit flavors. Much lower,
really good.
Yeah, it's really good. They actually don't have this vintage anymore. This is their 2014. I ordered the last couple of bottles of it from them when they were clearancing it at 30% off, and I'm always very happy about that. But normally it's still not that expensive. It's usually only about 20 bucks.
Not to contradict you, but their website says they have 7 in stock.
Of the 2014? Maybe it was a different one that they sold out of.
I mean, either way, it'd be cool.
Well, I thought I did.
Well, here's the thing: is maybe they found more.
Oh, that's possible.
Sometimes people don't always put those things together well.
Yeah, they did. They had a big clearance thing where they were like, "Look, these are our last 3 or 4 cases or whatever of it." And I emailed them and said, "Hey, do you have any more of that left?" And they were like, "Yeah, we can send you 4 bottles." And so I ordered that. And but it's very good. I really like it. I'm excited to try it on site, because apparently they've been rated by another, quickly becoming a friend of the show's, because I talk to him on Twitter all the time, Texas Wine Lover, the blog. They've rated this pretty high as having one of the best views for a Texas winery in Texas, because they're up on a hill. Their tasting room overlooks the lake. It's apparently very pretty. So I'm really excited for us to drive out there and take everybody there.
Yeah. And Torna Locks translates roughly to hills over lakes.
Oh, hills over lakes. Okay.
Or hill over lake, but
yeah. So
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. I like their story a lot. They also, if you go read their blog on their website, it was a lot of work for them to clear the land, and they do have grapes there now. But I think they planted them in like 2015. I'd have to go look at the blog. So they probably aren't producing that much fruit yet. If they are producing something from the vineyards on that site, Mason, since you're driving the van, I plan to get you 1 bottle from each of the wineries so that we can try those either later or at Childeberg at the lake.
Yes.
It would be kind of cool to maybe try to get one of the bottles from grapes that they actually grew on site.
Exactly.
That'd be really neat.
That would be kind of what I'm aiming to. I was aiming to do roughly the same thing, was get, purchase something to take back with me. whether that's back to Virginia or just back to site of from each winery. So if they had stuff that like, oh, this is exclusive to what we grow here, even if it was small bottles, that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it would be really cool. So that's really all I have to say about that wine. I think it's really good. I highly recommend it. And any of you guys who are coming out to Childeberg, go ahead and reserve a space on the wine van because you should try this. I think it's really good. And once I get somebody from Torna Locks on the podcast, I think you'll want to have it even more. So
I think so too.
So reserve that seat early because we have a limited number of them.
Yeah, and the number of seats on the wine van are less than the number of camping spots.
That's true.
Just because you can camp doesn't mean you can join the wine van.
Right, exactly. So I guess that's it. You want to do plugs, or do you got any more questions, Mason?
So you have very many diverse enjoyments in life, let's say.
Yeah.
Like, you enjoy Doctor Who and Star Wars and not on top of Liberty and all wine and all of those other fun things.
Yeah.
Taking the minute you left either work or your house to go to Alta Marfa.
Yeah.
And returning, what was your absolute favorite part of the trip?
Well, I really, so I like to drive long distances. I just like to see what the country looks like. Mm-hmm. And so that was probably one of my favorite things. I also finished the audio book for the new Thrawn book for Star Wars. Mm-hmm. That was really good too.
Speaking of Star Wars.
Yeah, that was also really good. But, just kind of driving through Texas, and I drove there a different way than I drove back. So I really got to see two different parts, which was really cool. Mm-hmm. So I got to go see hill country and then just low desert and then into high desert. It was all just super gorgeous and just really interesting to see. Everybody that I met was super nice. That was also really cool. On the way back, I drove through oil fields and just pumps everywhere, and then it got dark very quickly, so there was those I don't know what they're called, but those like really tall pipes that have the fire on top of them.
Burn-offs.
The burn-offs, yeah.
Is what I think that's what it does. I don't know if that's the name, but yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like so that because they pump out a lot of natural gas from that, and it's either too wet or just not the right type or whatever to pump, or it's just not efficient to pump it out. So for whatever reason, they burn it. And so, but for miles and miles around me, driving at night down this thing, you could see just these burn-off towers everywhere. Mm-hmm. It was really, really interesting. And it was just, I don't know if this is, actually I noticed this when I moved to Virginia. People in Virginia are way nicer than where I'm from in California. And people where I'm from in California are way nicer than people in like Sacramento or the Bay Area or LA or whatever. And that it's just the more rural you get, the nicer people are.
Yeah. And that's why I asked that question is, like, I knew you would have an interesting take on the entire trip.
Yeah.
Like, on what kind of stood out.
Well, you know what? I stopped and I plan to do a review on this wine. I also have been talking to the owners of this winery, Culmination in Hill Country. It's one of the higher end wineries in Hill Country. They produce a really good wine. I've been talking to the owners. I'm trying to line up an interview with one of them. Their winemaker is a different person. But I'm very interested in the business side of their winery.
That's the thing is, like, I'm interested in the business side of all the people we've talked to. Like,
oh, absolutely.
Like, talking to John, and then, like, just imagine if John could get grapes, like, excess grapes from Craig.
Yeah, that would be really cool, actually.
And see the interesting things he might be able to do with them, or at least blend with them.
Yeah, that would be really cool. But this Culmination Cellars, I visited there. That was probably one of the prettiest vineyards I've been to in Texas. Mm-hmm. Apart from Alta Marfa, probably, because now I have like a special place in my heart now for Alta Marfa because I helped plant it.
Yeah.
And like forever, like I'll taste my elbow grease in the terroir. And, but this Culmination Cellars, it was just a really pretty piece of land. The tasting facility was gorgeous. The wine, I opened up a bottle with Ricky when I got to Alta Marfa, and we tried it together, and it was outstanding. It was a really I've had a lot of Texas wines, and they range from okay to pretty good, or actually there've been a couple like that. Pertinalis one I had was outstanding. The one I sent you I thought was very good. Mm-hmm. There's one from starts with a B. I can't remember what it is, but it's also Tempranillo. That's very good. There's also from Messina Hoff. They have a couple of good ones, and from Llano they have a couple of really good ones too. This is by far the highest quality I think I've ever had from a Texas wine. It was very good. And Ricky kind of commented on it. He said, yeah, they know what they're doing. They have a very good winemaker from France who also knows a lot about the viticulture and is really helping them kind of produce very good wine grapes in both the hill country area and up in high plains to make sure that they have high quality selected grapes. It was expensive. They were $40 a bottle. So it was not cheap, but totally worth it. And if you ever get a chance, actually, you know who told me about it, Mason? I'll give him a shout out on the show. Let me look him up real quick. Maddie K from PA, at Maddie K from PA on Twitter. I think he's going to come to Childeberg.
Ooh.
He and his wife, I guess, go down to Hill Country every once in a while, and he knows a lot about the wineries down there. He turned me on to this Culmination Cellars. Awesome recommendation. Thank you, Maddie. If you hear this, you know, you're a champion, and that was a really, really great recommendation. I can't wait to meet you in person if you make it out to Childeberg.
Yeah.
So if we get a chance, I would like to get a couple more bottles of that and either send you some, Mason, or figure out a way that you and I can try them together, because I think it was top notch stuff. So that was probably one of my highlights of it. There's also in Marfa. This will be the last thing. In Marfa, there are a whole bunch of really interesting art installments, like out in the desert. So like you'll be just driving down the road, and there's like a building that's like says Prada. And it's like the front of a Prada store. And then like randomly there's just like a tiny Target. And like it's like there's just all sorts of really these weird like art installments out there. So that was also really neat. I really appreciate aesthetics and weirdness. I like local weirdness in particular. Apparently this is like a renowned famous artist, I guess, who puts these in and just really liked Marfa, and so he had his property and stuff out there. But I like that kind of eclectic stuff. And sort of on that note, when you're driving through, I always try to get off the freeway when I can and just sort of drive through like the side roads and stuff. When you get off of the main freeway and you're like on a smaller highway, you get these kind of eclectic, interesting. Oh man, there was this other really cool thing. So I got off the main freeway while I was out there and was just driving down, just kind of wandering around. And I was like, well, probably there's not going to be any more wineries at this point. And I was probably driving for like an hour or whatever, and I could see the lower desert from the hill. And I was like, okay, so I'm out of winery country. And then there was one sign that was like, this way winery. And so like I didn't slam on the brakes so like it would kill traffic, but honestly there was nobody driving on the road. But like, so I slowed down, and it was like through this kind of creepy looking like dead forest. And so I was like, you know what? This is my wine vacation or whatever. I'm going. So I went, and it was like 3 miles through this dirt road going across all these cattle gates and stuff like that. And I saw some deer back there, and there was a llama farm. And just, you know, a bunch of cows and horses and stuff, and then like some trailers with people and stuff. And everybody that saw me driving down the road, they wave, and they're just kind of like just people who live out there, and they wave as you coming down the road. And I finally got to the end of the road, and it was a winery, and it was a really cool. It was like Roadhouse from the movie. Yeah. It was kind of like a biker bar, but it was a biker bar winery. And when you got in, it was all Texas up. So there was like longhorn cattle and Texas flags everywhere, and like cowboys pasted on the walls, but it was very bar-y. It was very like kind of like rocker bar, but like Texas rocker bar kind of. And the guy in there was super nice, and he was like, "Hey, where are you coming from?" And I said, "Well, I'm coming from Dallas. I'm going to Marfa." And he's like, "Oh man, I've heard awesome stuff about the vineyards in Marfa, but there just isn't very many of them. I'm pretty excited. Like maybe we can get some grapes from there at some time." He's getting most of his grapes from Hill Country and from High Plains. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I'm pretty excited to go try it out. I've never had a wine from there. And actually when I was in Marfa, there was nobody selling any wines that were made from grapes in that area, which was interesting. But anyways, he was saying like about it. And then he was like, hey, you know, I'm going to be out sort of near Dallas next month. You want to come out to the Texarkana Grape and Wine Festival? And I was like, I'd love to. And he was like, cool. And then he gave me tastes of a whole bunch of different wines that they were doing. They're doing this new one that is, I can't remember what the grape's called. It's something Negro. And it's what I guess the Spanish monks brought over when they first started setting up missions in Texas. It's tannic, but it's sweet. It's a very sweet and tannic, or I would say semi-sweet. So it's like semi-sweet and tannic. Really interesting wine that he had. And he's like, yeah, this is one of my favorite ones that I make just because it's so unusual. Whereas like I got a Viognier from him and a Tempranillo. His Tempranillo was very good. It was High Plains also. His Viognier was also good. It was Hill Country Viognier. And so I bought a bottle of each of those. So I'll be doing mini episode reviews of those at some point. And then like I left and I looked up the Texarkana Wine Festival. And for some reason he said it was up by Dallas. It's not. It's like 3 hours east of here. But but that was cool too. It's just fun to kind of drive around when you don't have a huge time limit. Just kind of exploring the country and just having an idea to just take a risk and just see what's there. So.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't even know you had did that on that one. So
yeah, I'd forgotten about it until we started talking about it.
Well, so we are Tasting Anarchy. I'm Mason. He's Jake. Those of you who listen to this entire episode not managed to figure out either one of our names. We are 60 plus episodes in, so we've kind of changed up the start format. So if you managed to listen to this and not figure that out, you can visit us tastinganarchy.com. You can see Jacob's hijinks interacting with pretty much anyone who will interact with him on Twitter.
That's right.
Tasting Anarchy on Twitter. If you want to email us, tastinganarchy@gmail.com. We are, Jacob and Carr are the primary host of Childerberg.
That's right.
Which is our combined wine, liberty, beer, good friends, good people, liberty lovers festival in what is it? Central Texas? Or would you say
I guess Central Texas. It's near Austin.
Yeah, so Central Texas. Festival. If you don't know what Bilderberg is, look it up, be afraid, but we're not that. Dark Tom Woods may be making an appearance, who knows? All of those things, fun times. Come out, even if you can't get a reservation, you can always, if you want to support the fun from afar, we are taking donations to help offset some of the costs of possibly the wine van and other things. We'd love to see you guys there.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to end. So thanks a lot for listening, everybody. Stay free.
Stay free.
Once a year, the world's power brokers meet in secret at a heavily secured facility and discuss the fate of regular people like you. This meeting is known as the Bilderberg.
But you don't have to worry about that because you're going to Childerberg. Childerberg is the premier gathering of free folk in Texas, held at the beautiful Black Rock Park on the banks of refreshing Buchanan Lake in Llano County.
Childerberg 2019, June 8th and 9th.
Chill in the lake.
Make new friends with liberty lovers like you.
Enjoy camping in the great outdoors.
Hop in the wine van and visit the local wineries. Participate in podcasting magic and much, much more. Email us at tastinganarchy@gmail.com or reach out to us at Childerberg on Twitter for additional details. Childerberg 2019, June 8th and 9th. I'll see you there.